What's up everybody and welcome to a new video. And in this video we continue to go over my notes for the keyboard shortcuts in VS Code. And this time we're going to cover the keyboard shortcuts editor. And you can open that in different ways. For example, via this manage icon here and then clicking keyboard shortcuts. So now let's put this here on the left side and then close the sidebar. And what this shortcuts editor does is it lists all the available commands with and without keyboard shortcuts. So for example, if I scroll down here, you can see all the commands and some of them have keyboard shortcuts and some of them don't. And then the way that this table here is structured is that first in the first column here in the command column, there is the name of the command listed. Then here you have the key binding. If there is a key binding, then in this when column, there are the conditions listed where this key binding applies. And lastly, you have then the source for this command. And here system means those are the default commands, but these can also be then, for example, extensions. So for example, here are those commands for the Jupyter extension. And as we will see later, here it can also say user when you have a user defined keyboard shortcut. And you can filter this list with the search bar here at the top. So for example, if I search for format, then I can see commands related to format. And if I search for example, for undo, then I can see commands related to undo. And then here you have these three search options. So the first one is to record the keys. So if I toggle this on and then press Ctrl F, then I can see all the commands that have this specific key binding. Then next here we have sort by precedence. And here then the command with the highest precedence should be listed first. And to show that, let's look for the commands that have the key binding Ctrl B. So there are two commands. One comes from the Markdown All-in-One extension, which is for toggling bold. And the other one comes from the system, which is for toggling the primary sidebar visibility. And now if I toggle this on, then the command with the highest precedence should be listed first. However, this Markdown All-in-One is listed here at the bottom, even though it has the precedence. Namely, if I go here into this Markdown file and then press Ctrl B, then you can see that I'm actually toggling here bold and I'm not toggling this primary sidebar. So I don't know if that is a bug or if I'm misunderstanding something here. Okay, so that is this option. And then lastly, here you simply have the option to clear this search bar. Okay, so this is how you can filter this list with this search box. So then the next note is about modifying or managing the key bindings via the context menu. So for example, if I right click here this first command, then here we first have some copy options. So if I use this first option here, then this looks like this. So here we have the whole JSON object. Then we can also copy the command ID. So this looks like this. And then lastly, we can copy the command title and this looks like this. Then after that, we can change the key binding. And if you click that, then you can press your desired key combination and then press enter. So for example, if I press Ctrl F, then here it says that there are 10 existing commands that have this key binding. And if I press Ctrl Shift Alt F, then you can see that there are no other commands that have this key binding. Okay, so now let's not change that and simply press Escape. Then the next option that you have is to add a key binding, and to show that, let's again search for this toggle primary sidebar command. And here let's add a key binding and let's simply make it Alt B. So if I add this, then you can see here now in the source it says user because it's a user defined keyboard shortcut. And now we can toggle the sidebar either with Ctrl B or with Alt B. And then the next command is then simply to remove a key binding. So if you want to remove it, you can simply do it in this way. And then after that, you can also reset the key binding. So therefore, let's simply change this here first to be whatever key binding. And now if you want to reset that, simply use this command to reset the key binding. Then next we have the command to change the when expression. So with that, you can edit here those conditions. And here IntelliSense is available. So if I press Ctrl space, then I get all those when conditions. And here you can also use conditional operators. So for example, these are here these operators, and with that you can combine multiple conditions. And then lastly, we have here to show the same key bindings options. So therefore, let's go back to this command here, and then if I press here show same key bindings, then we can see all the commands that have those same key bindings. Okay, so this is how you can modify or manage the key bindings via the context menu. So then the next note is about the editor toolbar, and here the first note is about the keyboard shortcuts JSON file. Namely, you can open that with this button here, and any changes made to the key bindings are stored in this file. So to show that, let's put the editor over here, and then let's change the key binding for this first command here. So right click that and then change key binding, and let's set it simply to Control F. If I then press enter, then we get here these two entries. So the first entry is for our newly defined key binding, and the second entry here there is a minus sign in front of the command, and that indicates that this here is a removal rule. So this entry here is for removing the default keyboard shortcut. And then what you also can do is you can also directly modify the key bindings in this file here. So therefore you can press, for example, this button and then specify the desired key binding. So let's use Alt S and then press enter. So this creates this entry here. Or alternatively, what you could do is you could also use IntelliSense. So for example, if I then here invoke IntelliSense with Control Space, then I can also create such an entry here. And here you would then manually specify the key binding. So let's put it to Alt S. And then here within the command, you can again invoke IntelliSense with Control Space, and then you get a list for all the available commands. So let's, for example, search for save all. And then here for this when condition, you can either leave that empty if you don't need it, or you can also delete that. Okay, so now to show that this key binding here is working, let me turn off autosave, and then let's make a change here in this file. And then also a change in this file here. So now both of those are unsaved, and now if I press Alt S, both of these files here get saved. So now let me turn autosave back on, and then let's go over these side notes here. The first one is that you can disable a keyboard shortcut by specifying an empty action. So for example, if I delete this command here, then I've created an empty action, and then let's also here delete this when condition. And with that now, this Control F key binding is disabled. So what it means is that all the commands that have this key binding are now disabled. So for example, if I go into the editor and press Control F, then the search doesn't open. Or if I go into the terminal and here press Control F, the search also doesn't open here. Okay, so that's the first side note. And the second one is about advanced customizations. Namely, you can create command arguments, and here then is a link where you can find out more about that. And you can also run multiple commands with just one key binding, and there's also a link where you can find out more about that. Okay, so those are the side notes. And with that, now we've covered all the notes I want to cover with respect to this shortcuts.json file. So now let's get to the overflow menu. Therefore, let's put the editor again over here. And then here in the overflow menu, what you can do is you can filter this list of key bindings to just show, for example, extension key bindings. You can just show system key bindings, or you can also just show user key bindings. Okay, so that are these notes, and with that now we've covered all the notes that I wanted to cover with respect to the editor toolbar. So now let's go over these side notes here. And the first one is about customizing a keyboard shortcut for a UI action. So for example, to show that, let me open here the Explorer, and let's say we want to create a shortcut for this collapse folders button. Therefore, simply right click that and then here press configure key binding. So this opens then the keyboard shortcuts editor, filtered down to show this command, and here you also have the respective when condition. And now if you want to add a key binding, simply click this plus sign and then specify the key binding. So let's here choose Control Shift Alt and C and then press enter. And now to see if that works, let's open here a bunch of folders. And now if I press here, for example, then Control Shift Alt C, then you see that it doesn't work, and that's because of this when condition, because this when condition means that this header here needs to be focused. So now this is focused, and now if I press Control Shift Alt and C, then it actually collapses all those folders. And if you want this command to work in any circumstances, then simply remove this when condition. So therefore, let's go here to the keybindings.json file and then simply remove this when condition. And now if I open here a bunch of folders and now press Ctrl, Shift, Alt and C, then everything here gets collapsed. So that is this first side note here. So then the next side note is about troubleshooting keyboard shortcut conflicts. And you can do that via the command palette by running this command here. And what it does is it activates logging of the dispatched keyboard shortcuts and then opens the output view. So let's see that. So therefore let's open the command palette and then search for developer toggle keyboard shortcuts troubleshooting. So if I run this, then here the output view opens and then you can try to troubleshoot any issues. Okay, so this is the second side note, and with that now we've covered all those side notes, and with that we've covered all the notes that I wanted to cover with respect to the keyboard shortcuts editor. So we've reached the end of this video, and then in the next video we're gonna go over my notes for the Jupyter extension. So thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.